Hello there, I thought I would dispatch a video on the game Rommel and Tunisia, which I am playing here, and it's with thanks to the fellow who graciously donated it to this channel, and it's a game from 1978. Now I say game, but I wonder if I must be advised on that, because it advertises itself as a war game in the rule book. It actually describes itself as a study, and it is careful to note that they did not have enough time to properly develop this game to bring it up to sort of sufficiently polished standard to give a satisfactory game as such. So they kind of class it as a study. I think it's a little bit dishonest, because if you haven't finished the game, why did you release it? And I say that because I've played it. I've been playing it for a number of weeks now, and there's a lot of unclarity about what's going on in it. Now, some of that may just be my the fact that I haven't sort of fully grasped how to work with the system which they have devised. Some of it is so you know, like it's a different system from some, and so you know you might sort of bleed in things from other systems, and so make rule mistakes and not understand the rules in that, so find some disclarity in the rules. But I think it's a bit more than that, is that it requires you to play a very different way than you might be expected, and I guess I'm not really doing that, but I'm left with the sort of nagging doubt that this isn't really there's too many kind of holes in this to properly be able to call it a game, and not even a study. That's the major problem I have. I mean, even if you think it's a study, there's certain things you have to do to house rule, then that's okay. But I am actually questioning if the rules as given enable you to study this campaign in a manner which has any sort of real meaning, and I will get into that later. I think what I'm going to do is, so I don't think I'll touch that specific point in this video. I think what I'm going to do is 3 videos on this. So one will be this, which will just be a basic kind of overview of the system. Then another, I think, will be example of play, actual play from the game I'm playing currently, and then the third, I think, will then be my sort of thoughts and review of it. So for the system, you can see that it has the basics that we are familiar with hex and counter war games. So you've got a hex map, and I'm not going to go into all things like a review of components. You can sort of see on the internet what components are in the game and so forth. Suffice to say that it does contain what it calls a study folder. So you have the rules folder, and within that are some charts and tables in the center, and somebody who's done some development for this game on the Consim World has posted these charts and tables, so you get like half of what's here in the actual game. There's a bit more as well here, so like a sort of concise and detailed summary of play, and then also the command chains, how they function. Now that's very important, because this game is kind of in a sense a precursor to OCS, and in the spirit of OCS, and that this chap was more interested. It's an operational level game. He was the designer, J.A. Nelson, I believe, yes, J.A. Nelson was looking at command and control and supply, and that that is the sort of the heart of the game. That's but that's the one place where it's not actually fleshed out enough, at least for me, to sort of fully understand what's going on. But anyway, so I think I lost train of thought there, but to go swiftly on, yeah. So you get the study fold, and the study fold is very interesting. It's basically some chapters out of Little Heart's narrative of the history of the Second World War, and so it's got extracts out of that. Then it presents 3 scenarios. The race to Tunis, called Stage 1, so that's the setup. Then there is, and here's reinforcement charts. So you have this actually starts here on week 3. So week 1 is November the 10th, week 3, and then you go down every week having reinforcement charts to week 10. Now each week is 3 game turns, so you have 3 turns in a game cycle, and each player gets a game turn in that, and then at the top of each game turn there's some administration, and at the top of each week there's some administration. So you have the race to Tunis, game stage 1 or scenario 1. Then following on from that, you have the last chance for glory, which is stage 2. So here's the setup, and then finally you have the final collapse, stage 3. So there's those 3 scenarios, and they're all kind of, I think these are all setups of actual time of historical setups. And one of my questions is, would I ever actually get that historical setup from the game as played? Now that is actually a question. I'm questioning, am I not playing it accurately or not optimally? Or is this, is it one of those systems where it's a bit fudged? Now then the other thing to note is you can start with week 1, so 2 weeks before the start of the first scenario as such, and that is the campaign. And so the campaign essentially starts just with a few at start units listed here. Those are all my annotations in pencil, and starts on week 1 and goes through all the way to the end, which is week 28. So the turns can move quite swiftly, but that's a 28. So what's that? 60 plus 24, so that's 84 turn game, and that's what I'm aiming to play. I'm hoping to have the stamina for it, but I'm a bit sort of torn at the moment. Anyway, we'll get into that later. So the systems. So I was looking for the size of the hexes, but maybe I could speak about that later. But the point is it's operational. So what you have marked on here are mountains, hills, jebels, that's some kind of sandy rocky thing, and high jebels. They essentially function as sort of hills and mountains. Then rivers, and then you actually have coastal plain here. So this is sort of normal rolling land, and that's coastal plain, the easiest to move across. You don't get any of it here. You have Tunis over there. So Tunis is here, and there's a port. There's Bizerta here, there's a port there, and then down here you have the port of Bone. Now essentially the Axis will come in on those 2 ports. There's also a port here at Sfax, which they might be able to come in on. They'll come in on one of those 3 ports. Those are the only ports, those 4 that I've noted. The Axis have to come in on those ports, and they're trying to capture the port of Bone. If they do that, they win the game. And also at March you have highways, roads and trails. Weather is very important in the game. You have a weather chart, so it starts November, 50% chance of rain, 50% of fair. December 1 and 6 is mud, January 2 and 6 is mud, and that's the worst. The weather gets better after that. So you check weather at the top of each game turn, and if it is rain, you will mark it oops, rain, and then if the next game turn it's also rain, that actually then converts to mud. So you have you have fair weather, mud weather, and rainy weather, and you can see the effects are summarized here. So in rain, wadis are treated as rivers, attacks across rivers prohibited, and aircraft capacity is reduced. In mud it's the same, but you have tracks are ignored, and units might become trapped in mud due to their lines of command and control being cut. I.e., if a unit is relying to trace back on a track, it's not tracks disappear in mud, so they're out of command and control. They're allowed to sort of move back towards that. And then airfields have, there's two types of capacity, types of airfields. There's all weather, good weather, and then there's also landing grounds, which are small, hastily made airstrips which you can build. And you have different capacity. The Axis have better capacity or use of getting capacity out of the airfields. The airfields you can sort of see dotted around by these, and then the red ones are ones that have been captured by the Axis. Airfields are important because you can always use air that are within range from an airfield, or you also have off-map airfield boxes. And there's also one there, just quickly mentioned, the 8th Army come in, British 8th Army come in this way later in the game. At the start, like I said, the Axis is probably coming in here or here, possibly here, and the Allies will be coming in from here. So that's American and British. You've got American forces here, you've got British forces here, and then also at start on the map, they're a bit hidden at the moment because they're mostly under these disruption markers, you have French forces. So this map at start and the beginning of the campaign game starts just with French forces on it. No Axis, no Allied, apart from those three French. And so they will all come on as reinforcements. The first scenario starts with a few Allied and a few Axis units on. So airfields are very important because from an airfield you can always use aircraft in as ground support in combat, as long as they're within range, but you can only intercept from 8 hexes from an airfield. So as the Allies are getting pushed back to start with, essentially, so they're going to need, close-up airfields to protect their perimeter, but also they have to sort of do some kind of hopping back as those airfields get captured by the Axis. So if I sort of look at the sequence of play, and then we'll get into any more specifics to do with that. So let's talk a bit more about the map. So you've got the units. You have units like this is a battalion of Rangers, standard battalion of Axis infantry, German. So here you've got a brigade. You have regiments, can't see any at the moment, and you even have, there's a regiment of anti-tank, and you also get what are called detachments. So you can put any unit down here of any size and it can detach into 3 separate detachments, and they all have like just a nominal strength of 1 and easily disrupted. And no zone of control. So those are the sort of basic units, but then you have headquarters, you have divisional headquarters, and you have I think I can show you one here. You have where is it? Corps headquarters. What I was trying to get at. No, I've moved it. This must be it here. Yeah, there we go. There's a corps, the 5th Corps headquarters. And each of those also has a leader associated with it, and leaders can be used for combat bonuses. They're all, I think, 2. They might. I don't know. I haven't seen Monty and Rommel come out. I expect they'll have a different rating, higher rating. At least Rommel will. Now, the Germans have Kampfgruppe, which are great because essentially what happens with the headquarters is that they give you extra line of command. So the army, which it just represents where your supplies come in on, so that's the ports for the Axis which they have captured, and off map here for the Allies, and when the 8th Army come in, theirs will come in from that way. From your army supply you have an unlimited length, but that can go to a corps. From a corps you have 30 movement points to a division or a Kampfgruppe or a unit. So to a division headquarters, then from a division to a unit 10, and from Kampfgruppe to 10. So so essentially what you could have is, say, so you've got your corps there, he's got infinite supply, okay, length to army headquarters, so he can gain command points. Then that can throw them out 30 movement points, and that's wheeled movement points to a division, say. Then that division can send out 10 more movement points, wheeled movement points, to a unit, and that unit will be in supply, or in command control rather. And why have a corps when you have the army that has unlimited length? Well, because the corps can gain you bonuses. So here's your army organisation. So here you notify your army's command points, and then you can distribute them to any attached corps that are in command, so they're not surrounded essentially. And then your corps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11 points. At 11 points, he has 5 points of DRM to any combat it assists in. Every combat assistant has to spend a point, so then it can spend 4, blah blah blah. So and that only gets replenished at the top of the week. So during a week, it might expend, say, 3 points, so it's down from 5 to 4 effectiveness. If it doesn't get topped up, it's going to incrementally go down. So because remember, you're having to spend that in 3 game turns. Now, oops, where was I? I was there. This mustn't upset my game state. So so the corps can do that, and the DRM is very powerful. I'll show you that in a bit. But then, so what about the headquarters? Because you could trace from a corps directly to a unit, but the headquarters, they extend that range, and B, a headquarters, if I can show one, here's a Kampfgruppe, they function, no, this is a division. Headquarters has a bracketed strength of 2. It can flip, which spends a command point, so it has its own integral command point, and that will add another 1 to the DRM, which is going to make a difference. And then you can imagine, so at optimum, the Allies could add 5 from the corps. It can only be with 1 battle, because instantly it's going to go down from 5 to 4. But then they'll have 3 battles where they can add in the strength of 4, and like that. So you could go 5 from the corps, 1 from division, and so you have 4, and then +2, say, from the leader, +6 to DRM. And when you're considering that the dice used in this are D6 dice, that is a big DRM. You essentially can double your maximum roll. And the Germans, the Axis, can actually add a Kampfgruppe to that. So you can have corps, division, Kampfgruppe, and even a leader all adding in points to that DRM in a combat. But each of those has, the leader doesn't have to, but the corps and the headquarters have to expend that point of supply to bring in that support. So that's one of the decisions you're making. And now I'll get to the terrain effects chart, I think, because this is a very important thing, is you have tracked, wheeled and foot units. Now all our armour units are tracked, except for armoured reconnaissance, which can act as wheeled, which means they can go extra fast along the roads essentially. And then these ones are all wheeled, and then all the rest are either wheeled or foot, except for some French cavalry units which are solely foot. So and and you have to make a decision here. So these ones which could travel as foot or wheeled, if they travel as foot, it costs no command to move them. If they travel as wheeled, every stack, you expend a command point to move that. Every stack of tracked and permanent tracked and permanent wheels always need a command point to be expended to send them off. So your unit has to be in command range to be able to move unless it's foot or foot capable. Or there's one other option, is units can deplete themselves. So and this is, I think, some really nice finesse in the game, that you have this thing. So this unit, say he's out of command control because he's at the top of a high mountain, and wheeled units cannot go up mountains, but he's still fine within 1 hex. There's a special rule that allows tracement. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, he's not in command control. He can deplete himself and use his wheeled or armoured movement just to get out of danger. I get to depletion a third time later. Yeah, but it's very important because you see you've got coastal plain, upland, hill, the jebels, steep jebels and mountains, sand and swamp. Chots is unpassable. Chots are these big areas here, and they are this essentially cuts off. When the 8th Army comes in, that's going to be interesting because they've only got a few tracks they can get through this shot terrain. That's all unpassable to all units. There's a few dottings of shots here and there, but it's only going to be important later for that. So that's going to create some interesting battles going on. Just to note for scale, we've got Kasserine Pass here. Just, I don't know, for the historians, I managed to get some idea of the extent of the game map. Now, so these are all prohibited. So you can see tracked cannot go up jebels and mountains. And wheeled cannot even go up hills. So wheeled can only go on the coastal plain, the uplands. That's essentially what we normally know as clear hexes, but both types. And then they can use the highways, roads and tracked. But apart from that, so your command control is traced via these tracks. So you can see units that stray off, especially like in these big expanses here, they're not going to be in command control for very long once they stray off the roads. So they'll be able to, maybe start a turn like that, be in command control, but then for combat they're going to have to deplete themselves to fight in that kind of terrain. Defending would be fine, but attacking will be depleting. And so you use up that, and so especially in rain when you don't have these tracks, which you can see it essentially creates bottlenecks along the major highways, very accurate to the combat, but also opportunities. Sometimes the tracks are open, sometimes not. Depends on the weather. Depends on if infantry can always move by foot, but every unit has 30 movement points except during mud turns. That's after double rain when it goes down to 15. And then these are the movement points they expend. So a foot unit will move 10 hexes on a highway. Wheeled will move 30 and tracked will move 15. But you can see on the upland, which is the sort of standard open terrain here, tracked are going to move, what's that? That's 7, isn't it? Hexes. Wheeled even less, and foot 6 of their 30 movement points, and half that in the mud terrain. So yes, the terrain and the weather are very important here because they have a big effect, especially when you see things like sand and swamp, 15 movement points, 8 movement points, or steep jebel and mountains, 15 movement points. So it's 15 movement points. That's half of your movement allowance at maximum in these areas, and 10 movement points to go over a mountain. So, you can zip along the roads, but it can take you weeks and weeks to pass through mountains if the roads are blocked. And then you have the problem of supplying for combat. And so you can see that's why you could get, you might get in the situation, say you have a core supplying there, then only a few hexes down you have the what's it called, the division headquarters, and then maybe hex next to it you have the Kampfgruppe, and then next to that you have a unit, and that would just be in supply. And that's actually by house ruling by the guys who sort of did a little bit more development on this, posted it on Consim World, is the fact that normally wheels are completely prohibited. So if say you were here and a unit was here, it could not be in supply because the wheeled units cannot move into the hills, let alone the mountains, and so line of communication to headquarters is not there. That was just, I think that they found that just made everything that wasn't road really completely impractical. So the house rule is that now you are in line of communication if you're adjacent to one of those hexes. So if you're in a hill adjacent to a road, and the line can be traced to that road, you're fine. So what then you'll find is you can put your core here, your division here, and with a chain there, your Kampfgruppe here, and your unit there, and then you can get like a little chain of line of command to try and outflank. And this is a little bit what's happening with me. Is I find that according to the historical account, the Axis Army, the 5th Army and the 1st Battalion, they essentially spread out over this plain, and I think they took this Port Sfax too, so they were coming in from there. That didn't happen in mine, because in the campaign game as set up, the French can block that port's already blocked and set up, and they have one unit that can either block that port or that port. So whichever one it isn't on is the other one is the only one which the Axis can come in on. So essentially the Axis have to come in on the other, capture that one, and then they could go out and capture Sfax. Then they've got all three. But anyway, the Axis historically kind of spread out in this whole region, trying to outflank the Allies, because they were sort of heavily defending near the coast all these main supply highways. I haven't been doing that. I've been concentrating along these main highways and just trying to sort of disrupt and pass through. So what is essentially happening is I'm getting sort of bigger stacks of units, whereas historically they were more spread out, and it's not working so well for me, and I'll come to that I think now, because that relates to the combat results table. So you compare the attacker's strength to defender's strength, that's fine, so you have 1 to 3 to 5 to 1, but that is the cap. So what we find is that, say we have a situation like I've got say this ranger unit there, he's only attack strength 1, defense strength 1, and he's starred, which gives him the combat bonus. So he's only got 1 defense, so I could attack him with, say, these units here, 3, 4, so some armor, armor brigade. It's got some anti-tank. That won't come into that battle because they're attacking infantry and infantry. So that would be 3, 4 against 1, which would be 1 to 1. But then I can bring in some air, and the Axis has some great air. They have 78 range, so that's sort of more or less 60 from that hex, which brings them all the way sort of down to here. And they have air-to-air defense strength of 9, but these are Junkers 88s, but combat strength of 6, that small number there. So I can add that 6 in, so that's 3, 4 plus 6, 10. So now I'm like 10 to 1. But the highest I can get up to is 5 to 1. So okay, we stop at 5 to 1. Then what we do is we check for tactical advantage. That depends on train, troop competence. So the Germans get 2, British 1, the rest 0. If it's combined arms, infantry armour and air, and then defence can get some, then divisional integrity. That hasn't happened much to me yet because each side's still bringing on their units in dribs and drabs, so they're not, they haven't sort of brought on whole divisions yet. And so that's what's called the tactical advantage. So, and you can see the terrain gives these types of tactical advantage. So the basic is 1. So even just in clear terrain, like we had there, would be 1 to the defender. And then because the Germans are attacking, they will get 2. Because they've got armoured plus infantry plus that's another 2. So they'll have 4. So they're on 4, and the defender has 1. Let's leave it at that for the sake of argument. So what that means is then from 5 to 1, which is where we maxed out, even though we had 10 to 1 odds, then we go down 4 to 1, so that's the defender's tactical advantage. Then we can add 4 back, but we can still only get up to 5 to 1. So that is the best you can only ever get, even though that is quite a common situation that you have that magnificent odds. And so then you end up rolling the die. Now, from between 1 to 6, there's normal die roll. That is the attacker disrupted and no effect to the defender. So even at the best odds, even if you're attacking with ostensibly 10 to 1, the attacker can be disrupted, or they have to move back, reduce 2 combat units or disrupt. Reduces, you flip it and they have reduced strengths, or reduce 1 or a whole stack disrupt. And only then on the next 50% do you start doing the same to the defender. So that is when you need the DRMs. That is when you get the command strength of the headquarters, the on-map headquarters, so the core headquarter, the on-map, the Kampfgruppe, and the leaders. So those DRMs are what make the battle decisive, because it's only you want to get 4, at least roll of 4. So you're going to need at least +3 DRM as the attacker. And these are only for the attackers. The defender cannot take these down. That is the sort of good thing, as it were. But the point is that many of your combats, no matter how sort of ostensibly powerful you might be, if they're kind of soak off or sort of sideshow attacks, they're not going to be that. Often they're as bad for the attacker as for the defender. It's only when you can bring in your headquarters and your leaders, so they can only be in certain places at certain times. So 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5, depending, are you going to get your really decisive attacks, possibly even what's called a breakthrough, which is where if you have a defender stacked behind your attacking stack, if you have the headquarters stacked behind the attacking stack and there's other units with that, not only must the defender retreat 4 units, 4 hexes, and disrupt, and you get advance after combat, and then you can get a breakthrough, which is then essentially another movement and attack from the units stacked underneath the headquarters. Excuse me. So much all sort of so familiarly-ish. Except I think that depletion thing. So essentially what you're going for in the combat is, as in your results, you can either reduce strength, or you may disrupt or retreat. Now disruption is not so great, because disruption means your zone of control is gone. So then you can gradually be slid around behind. Although in the hills, yes, but where there's tracked units could go around here, but that's the Tunisian-Algerian border, this line, but not around the mountains and not over rivers, so tracked units cannot pass. Oh yes, they can. So rivers at +10, yeah, but the wheels can't. So when you come to sort of places like this fellow's disrupted, so he's got no zone of control, but he's sitting on the highway, and because there's a river, you can't attack over rivers in mud or rain turns. So he's able to hold them up, and they might be able to creep around here with infantry and armour, but then they're getting depleted. And if you are depleted and don't come into line of communication, you cannot then move any further. So essentially the armour could go out there, and then they're depleted, and wouldn't have strength to sort of jump over. But then you'd have to bring in camp grippers and send out the line of communication like that, which all takes time. And so so you want to kind of just bash through, wait for good weather if you need it for the rivers and the wadis, and just kind of bash through the speed bumps that are being put in your way. But then you can only do that with the correct any sort of good chance to do that with the correct combat DRMs, not just your brute strength alone. You need that finesse and I guess the support weapons and so forth are represented by the command points from the headquarters and divisions. So that's a key thing I'm finding with this game, and I think that's one of the things that what I'm tending to do is what you sort of tend to do is you kind of bunch up in stacks for combat strength, but then the strength is useless because you're waiting for your supports, your headquarters, command point support, your leaders and so forth. And so hence I think the historical thing was probably more effective is to be spread out. But then, and so, sort of have a unit and then a back and a back and a backstop so that you don't get someone just steamrolling right through your front line and entering your total backspace. So it's, requiring a bit of a change of style of play in that sense. Here's the air-to-air combat results table. So it favours the Axis. There's at 1-to-1. There's a 50% chance of the defender aborting or the attacker aborting. If you're intercepting and ground support, you are counted as the attacker. And the Axis always get +2 because of their pilot quality. Brits get 1. They've been fighting around in this weather and terrain for a while, so a bit more used to it. So there's combat, and it seems very important, the air combat and the air support. I won't go into all the detail about it, but what I found is all of these are unused. I haven't used them yet, so the Allies have tons of units which they're able to use, which are available to them, but they just can't use them because they don't have the enough command points, because according to the rules you have to activate them every turn and with 1 command point each. Now when you consider that the Allies are starting off with 18 command points every 3 turns, that's every week, for at least the first 5 or 6 weeks of the game, and you need a command point to move every stack. You need your reinforcements coming in. You have to move them forwards to stop the Axis, and you have so little to spend. So you keep getting these are building up in Algeria off map airfields, but they're just not available for use because and I guess I'm historically it's kind of accurate, but I guess for the game state. There's a bit of the study thing. Yes, we've got all this air, but have we got the capacity to use it and deploy it yet? No. It's just annoying. It seems kind of like I wonder what I'm missing and if I'm doing something wrong, because that stat's just going to get higher and higher, and I'm waiting for the Allies to have the opportunity to use it. So after every turn, you're supposed to turn them over, and so they're spent. So then you have to spend another command point, and that's per air unit, not per stack, I reiterate. So you've got 3 air. If you activate them each once, that's 9 command points in the three game turns of each week. And if you start with 18, That's half your command points. If you want to move any from here onto map airfields so that they can supply defence within that 8 hexes, that's 2 points each to move them onto the map. So then that would be 2. So for 3 of them, that would be 6. They're active for that turn, and then 6 more. So that's 12. So then you've got 6 command points left. That's 2 each turn. So you could move 2 stacks. In the meantime, the Axis is just eating you up. And then there's this whole air battle going on, which is represented here. So this is the Axis, their cover air units for their supplies which they're bringing in. And these are the air units that the Allies are bringing in to combat that, to interdict that. Now, depending on the balance of that, that is added to the Axis base 25 command points they start with. And they, because you have to spend points as command points to put the air in there. The Allies, they're spending it, their maximum, they're doing the maximum they can there. They're still, that's depleting them here on map as well. But anyway, beside that, the Axis is so powerful in that at the start that they've been getting like sort of 50 command points a turn to distribute between their air. So they have the Italian First Army and the German Fifth Army represented there, and that would be their detachments. I'm just doing both sides detachments down here. So the Axis have just got, the only thing that's really sort of stopping them is the weather. They've got all the command they need, but it's going to swing because when you look through, so you see here at the start, this is a photocopy from the book. The Army Ops for the first, that's the Allied first, is 18. The NSA, that's the National Strategic Advantage. So that number is added to whatever the Axis air have in there. Then that is compared to the Allied air. So the Axis start out with 20. The Allied can bring out 30 max at the moment. And then you add whatever else the Axis add in, divide that by 2 and add that to the base 25, and that is the Axis Ops. So the Axis start with 25 plus half of that plus half of whatever they can get over and above what the Allied add in, which is a fair old amount. It's tons. And another thing which I haven't mentioned is that the air can attack without any ground support, so they can just attack directly. But again, that happens on here, and air attacks can never have the combat DRMs. So they can get 5-to-1 odds, but the Allies will get their tactical advantage. So if you air attack that alone, he'll get 1 for being in that terrain, and then he gets an extra 1 for being a starred unit, the Rangers. They're not no sluggards. So even if you're at 5-to-1 on your air attack, those Stukas versus that one, it will go down to here. And then you roll. You don't take any deleterious effect, but you can see only a 4, 5 or 6, so you're going to affect the unit. But you can do that. That is an effective way to force retreats or disruptions. And yes, I think I sort of said a lot, and I think you're getting a good idea of how this game plays. The last thing I should probably mention before I wrap up, because this is getting quite long, is the top of the week interphase. So top of week interphase is when you work out the strategic air, the command points, you put out your cores, and then you can do some rise. But top of the turn, so at the top of each turn there's a command phase. Then you have player turn, so active movement. Then you get reserve movement. That's your opponent. Now he can move some units into enemy zones of control if he has units in there, but otherwise he can't move into zones of control, nor can he move units that are out of zones of control. I'm going suppose you can move units into zone of control. I've forgotten about that. But you can't move out of zone of control. So you... Yeah, and that's the thing which is a bit strange in the game. I think that's why I sort of ignored that ability. Is if you're adjacent to a unit during the combat phase, which happens after your opponent's reserve movement, the combat phase, then you have air and so forth, then the possible breakthrough, and then that's the end of the player turn. But anyway, because your opponent has to attack you if he's adjacent in the combat phase, you could potentially move adjacent to your opponent and force an attack on him. But then the thing is that does that mean he then has to spend the command points? And if he doesn't have the command points, then he can't do the attack. So I don't know. And if he's out of, it's a bit of a strange thing. And I think perhaps it is crucial to the game and the way the game plays. But I haven't sort of really cottoned onto that and made advantage of it. I think perhaps I'll start doing that now. But it's kind of odd because essentially what it means is that if a unit does not say it's the Axis turn, he's moved up here, and I in my reserve movement as a non-phasing player I move adjacent. Now he has to attack me. Say he's out of line of communication, that means he will have to deplete and attack me. Now when he's depleted, if he's still out of line of communications, he's then disrupted. If the next turn that you check, if you're out of communication and disrupted and adjacent to an enemy zone of control, you are eliminated, essentially surrender. So he's in his turn, he gets disrupted because he has to attack that guy and he's out of communication. Then it's this guy's turn. He might then move away, say, or he may stay. If he stays there, he's going to have to attack me. So he might then move away, let's say. Then he's out of communication. He's depleted, so he can't move himself because he's depleted. If he's an armoured unit, say. So you have to send something in to get him into communication. If not, he's going to be disrupted. If he's disrupted, then that guy, all he has to do is move back in. Then the next turn, if that's still the situation, they're going to surrender. And perhaps that is really what this game is about. It's that kind of, because of that peculiarity of how the command control, the forced attack, and the reserve movement phase work. That's what's going on. So that's why you would never really have large stacks, except at certain points. I don't have large stacks. They're not that large. It's just that my forces are not spread out as they appear on the. I think they're not spreading out this way as they would do if they'd follow the historical route. I don't know, maybe it's just my style of play, but I feel I don't have grasp on the combat yet, and I think that's what I'm going to do, is stop here now. I mean, I understand the combat rules, but I don't think I've got a good grasp of how to optimise it and use it best. I've got some ideas, but I'm not there yet. And this is, I'm on game week 6, and this is the third time I've played it, and I played it up to 7, game week 7 twice before. And so I'm still, that's 21 turns each time, so that's not insignificant. 21 times I've been working my way through this. So I'm going to leave it there. I will do an example of play when I played a little bit more, and I maybe show you a bit more clearly the ins and outs of all of that, and then I'll come back after that, I think, with a review video at some point. So that's it for now. Any questions, just send them below and I'll try and answer them. If you ask me a question within, say, 2 or 3 months, I probably won't be able to answer you because I've probably finished playing this game by then and have moved on to another game, and so my mind will be on another set of rules and I will not remember everything to do with this, and it will be boxed and put on a shelf. And if you're asking a question fairly soon, that's fine. If you're just you're just curious, I might not, many months or years later, I might not be able to satisfy you. That's just a fair warning. Okay, goodbye for now. Over and out.